It's time to rewind the clock all the way back to August 2006 and Wizard's Hot 10 Comics list as seen in Wizard number 178. 18 years later, this is the most relevant Hot 10 we've revisited here in the short history of the Back in the Day Countdown. In fact, I bet you have a couple of these books in your collection right now. Let's do this. Rounding out the Hot 10 was the first issue of a series that sought to answer a single question. What would the DC Universe look like if Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman disappeared for an entire year? 365 days, 12 months, 52 weeks each with a new issue of 52, starting with our number 10 book, 52 number 1. Cover dated July 2006, 52 number 1 was something that the hobby hadn't seen before. A year-long event that led directly into another year-long event in Countdown to Final Crisis. Every week saw a new issue hitting the shelves. To be fair, the main appeal of 52 number 1 was simply that it was the launching point for the story. It laid the groundwork for what was to come, and with a cover price of $2.50, Wizard was already valuing it with a 10% premium a month after its release at $2.75. With having nothing to drive it to key status, 52 number 1's value hasn't changed much in the time since. In today's market, $3 is what you should expect to pay for a copy of this one, but don't be surprised if you find it hanging out in a dollar bin. You may have caught that there was no Wizard Says segment. By this point, Wizard had changed up the format of the Hot 10 a bit from its original style. Instead of writing copy for each book on the list, readers just got a single blurb to cover the entire list, which we will be reviewing towards the end of the video. At the number 9 spot, we find a book whose A cover caught a bit of a bounce in 2023 following James Gunn's announcement of the newly christened DC Studio slate. But in August 2006, Wizard's Hot 10 was all about the Neal Adams variant of All-Star Superman number 1. Regardless of which cover of this book you picked up, you were doing alright. The A cover was drawn by the extremely talented Frank Quitely, but the market quickly shifted towards the Adams variant, value-wise anyway, and who could blame them? Not only was Neal Adams a legendary artist, he was a legend with a number of classic Superman covers and issues under his belt, which just made this return to the Man of Steel even sweeter. All-Star Superman was cover dated January 2006, so it had been percolating on the secondary market for several months when this Hot 10 was put together. At the time, Wizard valued the variant at $22, which was a pretty solid price for a newer variant at the time. Time has proven to have had a kryptonite-like effect on this variant though, and not even its Neal Adams cover could save it. With a current FMV of $10 based on multiple raw sales on eBay just in July, this 1 in 10 ratio variant flew just a little too close to the sun. We're moving up to the number 8 spot, but we're still talking about Superman covers. Let's take a look at Justice number 4, second print. Cover artist Alex Ross turned in some great cover work for Justice, but the design choices he made for the second printings of this series have made for a lasting collectability for the issues, turning in the comic book cover equivalent of the Pepsi Collector Series or Moon Glasses series from 1976. Ross's covers for the second printings of issues 2, 4, and 5 feature a select hero with a colored circle behind them against a white background, while the first and last issues received a more traditional alternative cover for their second printings. Cover dated April 2006, this reprint was pretty fresh when it made the Hot 10, but that didn't stop Wizard from valuing it at $6 at the time. With a cover price of $3.50, that was a pretty decent jump in just a couple months. Fast forward to today, and this one has a fair market value of $15 and just a couple of sales reporting. Alex Ross has no shortage of great covers to choose from, but when you add some top-tier Alex Ross to a harder-to-find second print, you get a book with a little bit of staying power. The number 7 book debuted 7 months after the summer blockbuster that set the stage for its story. The movie was Star Wars Episode 3, The Revenge of the Sith, and the book is Star Wars Purge. This one-shot issue from Dark Horse Comics was set just 1 month after the events of Revenge of the Sith, and, well, it's a bit of a downer, honestly. Unless you're down with watching Vader unalive lots and lots of Jedi decked out with his shiny new prosthetics and breathing apparatus. Unlike Vader, Purge had some legs, as it was still hanging onto a spot on the Hot 10 8 months after its release. One thing is for sure, its popularity was aided by a fantastic Adam Hughes cover. That prolonged excitement helps drive the value well beyond the issue's original $2.99 cover price. FMV at the time was reported at $20. Recent sales reporting on eBay indicate a current value in the area of $10, with a strong recent sale at the end of July closing out just above $20. Do you remember comics back in 2006? I'd just gotten back into the hobby the year before, and it was a good time to come back in because Marvel was getting ready to put out one of the best summer event series ever with Civil War. But at the time this issue of Wizard was released, we were just getting started with Civil War, but the hype was real with a Civil War prelude issue nearly breaking into the top half of the list with Fantastic Four number 536. Why was this issue hot? Back in December 2004's Thor number 85, as part of the Disassembled crossover event, a story arc titled Ragnarok concluded. Now, if you know anything about Thor's mythology, that is not a good thing for our old pal Point Break. Thor, along with a lot of his principal supporting cast, didn't make it out of the issue alive. Fast forward a year and a half later, and FF 536 drops with its Mike McCone cover depicting Mjolnir, which is not something you'd expect to see in a world without Thor. The reappearance of Mjolnir, along with being branded as The Road to Civil War issue, caused this thing to disappear from store shelves in an instant. In fact, by August 2006, the issue was selling for nearly 3 times its cover price at $8, but that was based on the assumption that you could actually find a copy, which I never did until years later. Today, you can pick a copy up off of eBay for just a couple of bucks. FF 536 is another example of one of those previously hot books that you will now pay far more in shipping for than what the book itself will cost you. But that cover is still pretty damn cool, and it's a fun Doctor Doom story that continues on into the following issue. And if you give this one a read, you might recognize some of the story elements that were later adapted for the MCU back in its early days. Breaking into the top half of the August 2006 Hot 10 list, we find the Ian Churchill variant of Supergirl number 6 in the number 5 spot. With the A cover, Churchill depicts Nightwing and Flamebird in their full costume. With this variant cover, the masks are off, revealing that instead of Nightbird and Flamebird, it's actually Power Girl and Supergirl in those costumes. Penned by Greg Rucka and illustrated by Ed Bennis, the story is titled Candor Part 1, which is the play on the setting of the tale on a planet called Candor with a K. Cover dated April 2006, this Supergirl variant comes off as a Flavor of the Week variant. No offense to Churchill, it's a good cover, but there's nothing about this issue that's noteworthy. At the time, the excitement surrounding the cover variant was sufficient enough to garner a $15 price tag, but in today's market, the honeymoon is long since over. A single sale is reporting within the last 2 months, and this initially hot variant managed to outsell its original cover price by a whole dollar 18 years later. Despite the minimal sales that are reporting, there are several mostly all-over priced copies available on eBay as of the recording of this video. At number 4, we find another freshly released variant from the time, but this time the bottom hasn't fallen out because the title character is more popular in recent times than he was even back when this Hot 10 was assembled. The number 4 book is the sketch variant to 2006's Moon Knight number 1. Published in June 2006, this volume of Moon Knight was spearheaded by writer Charlie Huston and artist David Finch, who drew both the interior and cover art. It would take 2 more volumes of Moon Knight comics before the character would reach peak popularity in the wake of the 2014 series from Warren Ellis, which was also helped along by a healthy dose of movie speculation as the MCU became the cultural juggernaut that we remember from the Infinity Saga. 2006 seemed to be the year of the sketch cover at the time, as everywhere you looked you found another sketch variant. And no arguments for me though, they look pretty dang cool. At the time, Wizard valued this Moon Knight sketch variant at $20, and that's pretty much where we're still at today. Recent sales have primarily been right at $20, but a few have managed to bring in higher results. As 2005 began to fade into 2006, a new threat cast its shadow over the Marvel Universe, and by the time our featured issue of Wizard hit the stands, the Marvel Zombies were a phenomenon. 6 months after its release, Marvel Zombies number 1 was the number 3 book on the Hot 10. Every issue of the 5-issue series went through multiple printings, except for issue 2, which I always thought was kind of weird. And while the story was great, as you might expect for a series written by zombie masters master Robert Kirkman, the driving force behind the series' success was largely due to the fantastic cover work of Arthur Sidem. Starting here with a zombified cover swipe of Amazing Fantasy 15, over the course of the series, Sidem would reimagine Hulk #1, Amazing Spider-Man 39, Silver Surfer 1, Avengers 4, and many others. In fact, the fun would continue on for several additional Marvel Zombie series, which collectors like myself continue to gobble up just for the cover art. With a cover date of February 2006, this book exploded in its first 6 months with a cover price of $2.99. By the time it was sitting here in the number 3 spot of this Hot 10, Marvel Zombies had a strong fair market value of $35. Recent sales have been all over the place, but the one constant is that if you bought this thing for $35 in 2006, you're still going to make money on it today. Most sales have been in the $50 to $60 range, but there have been sales both higher and lower as well, over a fairly high volume of sales compared to other books occupying the Hot 10 this month. The Variant Love Fest continues in the runner-up spot, as the number 2 book for the August 2006 Hot 10 Comics list was Wolverine Origins #1, the Michael Turner variant. Turner made a name for himself in the 90s with his work on female-led titles such as Witchblade and Fathom. It may have had something to do with his ability to draw the female form in ways that appealed to male readers. Just maybe. Turner would launch his own publishing company at the beginning of the new millennium and would enjoy a successful period as a very in-demand cover artist. Published in June 2006, Wolverine Origins hit the market with a good amount of enthusiasm and with a fairly underwhelming A cover from Joe Quesada, but, the dude was the boss, so nobody was going to tell him that. Turner's cover for Wolverine Origins #1 is by far the best one. Wizard valued the book at $5.50 in their August 2006 issue, nearly doubling its cover price in, the brief amount of time that it was out. Today, this issue's been overshadowed by the key issues and a few variants that would come later in the run. I just recently talked about the 1 in 100 Third Claw variant to issue number 10, and the Canadian flag variant of issue 2 also remains a favorite of collectors all these years later. In 2006, pop culture was abuzz with transformative events and trends that left a lasting impact. The year saw blockbuster films like Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, and The Da Vinci Code dominating the box office and sparking widespread discussion. On TV, shows such as Heroes captivated audiences with their blend of superhero drama and intrigue. The music scene was vibrant with hits from artists like Shakira and Justin Timberlake, while social media platforms like MySpace were still at their peak. An upstart named Twitter came on the scene, which began to revolutionize how people communicated online. In sports, 2006 was memorable for the NFL as the Pittsburgh Steelers won Super Bowl 40, with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger leading his team to a thrilling victory over the Seattle Seahawks. Additionally, the NBA saw the Miami Heat win their first championship, with Dwayne Wade delivering a standout performance. Now, we've counted down all the way to the top spot for the Wizard Magazine Hot 10 Comics list for August 2006, and in the #1 spot, we find the Michael Turner variant for Civil War #1. Cover dated July 2006, Civil War was the story of the summer that year. The series would run for 7 issues, each of which would have an A cover, a Turner color variant, and finally a sketch version of the Turner variant. Turner was just here for the variant covers though. The creative team for the story consisted of writer Mark Miller and artist Steve McNiven, who also provided the standard A cover art for the series. Just 1 month after its release, this 1 in 25 color variant, the sketch variants were 1 in 75 if I remember right, it was already selling for $28. For the time, that was a strong jump in price over such a short period of time. In the current market, the issue is selling on average around $35 or $40, but there are multiple sales at $50, while one really lucky buyer snagged a copy for just 99 cents at the end of June. Well played, guy. Sadly, the hobby lost Michael Turner far too soon when he passed away from cancer in 2008 at the age of just 37. And now, let's see what Wizard says about this month's Hot 10. Between a 1 in 25 Civil War #1 variant and a 50-50 split cover to Wolverine Origins #1, Michael Turner has a list on lockdown. How else do you explain the displacement of Marvel Zombies #1 from its crazy long stint at the #1 position? Still, the zombie adventure finds itself above a sketch version of Moon Knight #1 and the maskless Ian Churchill cover to Supergirl #6. The return of Thor's hammer and Fantastic Four 536 and the deep film ties of Star Wars Purge keep both books strong, just above the red-hot, iconic-looking and under-ordered Justice #4 second printing. Then there's the back of the list where Neil Adams' All-Star Superman #1 variant slightly edges out the mega-selling 52 #1. It was a tough pill to swallow when I sat down to work on this video and realized that August 2006 was 18 years ago. I got back into the hobby in January 2005, and somehow that's almost 20 years ago now. I guess the old saying's true, time flies when you're having fun. One last reminder for everybody that I will be set up at GarageCon in Lenexa, Kansas this coming Saturday, August 10th. The show runs from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., but there is an early bird that starts at 9 a.m. I'm looking forward to seeing all of my KC people out at the show. I hope you enjoyed this trip back to 2006. Tune in next month as we dive into the Hot 10 Comics list for a yet-to-be-determined September in the Back in the Day Top 10 Comics Countdown. Collect responsibly. I'll see you in the next video.